They said I was done, too old, too slow, like my time had passed and I just hadn't realized it yet. But what they didn't know was that the quiet ones always return when no one's watching. I still remember the way they looked at me, polite smiles, careful words, but their eyes said it all. They didn't think I could keep up anymore. I was the oldest in the room by at least 10 years. They didn't need to say it. I already knew. The meeting was short. No shouting, no drama, just a slow, quiet erasing of everything I'd built. After 15 years in the company, they were going in a new direction. A direction that didn't include me. I walked out of that building with a box in my hands and a knot in my chest. It wasn't just a job. It was my identity, my routine, my place in the world. And now it was gone. People tried to be kind, friends, family, even some of the younger guys who'd once looked up to me. They said things like, "It's time to rest," or "You've had a good run." But that's the thing, I wasn't ready to rest. Not yet. I still had fight left in me. I just didn't know where to put it. For weeks, I wandered through my days in silence. The world moved fast without me. Online meetings I wasn't invited to. Projects I once led now being handed to fresh faces with shinier resumes. I felt like a ghost watching someone else live my life. But the worst part wasn't the loss. It was the doubt. Maybe they were right, maybe I was too old, maybe my time really had passed. I didn't sleep much during those nights. My mind kept replaying every moment, what I could have done differently, where I went wrong. But no answers came, just silence. Still, deep down, buried under the hurt, there was something else. A quiet voice that refused to die. It didn't scream, it didn't beg, it simply whispered. "This isn't the end, not yet." And for some reason, I believed it. After the dust settled, life didn't crash all at once. It just faded slowly, quietly, like a song that keeps playing after the room has emptied. I thought I'd bounce back quickly, find something new, prove them wrong. But days turned into weeks, and that fire I once had, it barely flickered. My mornings felt empty. No alarms, no calls, no pressure. At first it felt like a break, like I was finally free, but that freedom quickly turned into stillness, and that stillness became weight, heavy, invisible weight. I tried to keep busy, read some books, go for walks, even signed up for a few online classes. But everything felt hollow, like I was going through the motions just to avoid thinking too much. Every mirror I passed reminded me of what they saw, the lines on my face, the gray at my temples, the years I couldn't hide. What hurt the most wasn't that they let me go. It was how easily they moved on. No calls, no updates, just silence like I'd never mattered at all. There were moments I stared at my reflection and didn't recognize the man looking back. I was tired in a way I couldn't explain. Not physically, something deeper. Like a part of me had quietly stepped back, unsure if it was still welcome. Friends reached out, but I pulled away. I didn't want pity. I didn't want empty encouragement. I wanted to feel like I still had purpose, like I was still needed. One night I sat alone in the kitchen, dinner untouched. My phone buzzed, an invite to a networking event. I stared at it for a long time. Then I locked the screen and slid the phone across the table. I couldn't face them, not yet. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat there, still, quiet, waiting for something, anything to make sense again. And yet somewhere in that silence that same whisper returned, faint, unshaken. "They haven't seen the last of you." At the time, I didn't believe it, but I didn't ignore it either. Weeks passed, maybe more, I stopped keeping track. Most days looked the same, coffee in silence, long walks without direction, evenings filled with nothing. But even in that emptiness, something small kept pushing through. It started with a headline I saw by accident. One of the young guys from my old job had landed a major deal. The kind of deal I used to chase. I clicked the article, read every word. My stomach twisted, not out of jealousy, but because I knew I could have done it better. I tried to brush it off, told myself to move on, but something inside me stirred. Not anger, not envy, something older, something deeper. That spark that used to make my heart beat faster when I faced a challenge. I hadn't felt it in months, but now it was back, faint but real. I started watching from a distance. I followed the news, studied new trends, listened to interviews, took notes, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I couldn't help myself. I still cared, maybe too much. Every time I saw a rookie make a sloppy move, I'd instinctively think, wrong approach. Should have done this instead. It was like my brain refused to turn off, no matter how hard I tried. And then one afternoon I caught myself doing something strange. I opened an old folder of mine filled with past strategies and plans. Notes, drafts, half-baked ideas, I hadn't touched it in years. But as I scrolled, something clicked. These weren't the dusty thoughts of a man past his prime. They were sharp, smart, still relevant. That night, I didn't just sit in silence. I stayed up sketching out ideas, not for anyone, just for me. And for the first time in months, I felt alive. I didn't know what I was building toward. I had no audience, no team, no stage, but the flame was back. And even though it flickered with doubt, it refused to die. I wasn't ready to stand in the spotlight again, but I could feel it pulling me. And this time, I wasn't going to look away. The world didn't see me, but I was working, quietly, consistently. In a corner of my small home office, surrounded by old notebooks, worn-out pens, and a second-hand laptop, I started again from scratch. At first, my mind fought me. Everything felt slower. The words didn't flow like they used to. My body, too, aches in places I used to ignore. The kind of stiffness that doesn't go away with a good night's sleep. Every part of me was whispering, "You're not who you used to be." But I kept going. Each morning, I woke up early. Not because I had a meeting or a deadline, but because I chose to. I treated it like a job because it was. Rebuilding myself wasn't some hobby to pass time. It was a mission. I started reading like I did in my 20s, hungry, curious, restless. I consumed books on business, leadership, psychology, strategy. I signed up for online courses and sat through every module like it was life or death. I wasn't just catching up, I was getting ahead. But it wasn't glamorous. There were days I sat staring at the screen, questioning everything. Days when my ideas felt outdated, when my hands shook with frustration. I was fighting a battle that no one could see, and I was my own worst enemy. Still, I didn't stop. I started testing my theories, building small strategies, creating mock plans. I sent them anonymously into online communities, watched how people responded. Some laughed, some ignored me, but a few listened, and that was enough. I changed my routines, focused on fitness. Simple workouts at home, nothing intense, just enough to get the blood moving, to feel like I was taking care of myself again. Every drop of sweat reminded me, "You're not done yet." There was no applause, no recognition, just the sound of keys clicking in the quiet and the rhythm of my breath slowly regaining strength. This was the version of me no one had seen, the one they never bothered to imagine. And I wasn't doing it to prove them wrong anymore. I was doing it to remember who I really was. I didn't expect them to notice. I'd been gone too long, slipped too far out of the circle. But the world has a strange way of looping back, even when you try to stay invisible. It started with a casual encounter at a local cafe. One of the newer guys from my old company walked in, young, loud, full of that electric energy I used to carry myself. He didn't see me at first. I was tucked in the corner, sipping coffee and sketching out a plan on a napkin. But when his eyes landed on me, his smile stretched, too wide, too amused. He walked over, pulled up a chair without asking. "Hey," he said, smirking, "didn't expect to see you here. Thought you'd be, I don't know, retired." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. He leaned in like he was letting me in on some secret. "You know, people still talk about you. They say you were solid back then. But now, things move fast, man. New world, new rules." I nodded, letting his words hang in the air like smoke. He was enjoying it. Not to hurt me, not exactly. Just the way people enjoy watching an old lion behind glass, harmless, outdated, forgotten. Then he stood up, patted my shoulder, and said it with a chuckle that sank straight into my chest. "Anyway, try not to work too hard. You've earned your rest." He walked away without looking back. I sat there for a long time after that. My coffee had gone cold, my pen had stopped moving. I replayed his words, not the surface ones, the ones beneath them. The dismissal, the condescension, the quiet little laugh behind my back. It stung, but then something sharp lit up inside me. Not anger, not revenge. Resolve. They thought I was tired, over, irrelevant, but they had no idea I was training in silence while they were busy celebrating too early. That laugh wasn't a threat, it was fuel. And I was just getting started. Momentum is a strange thing. You can't see it coming. You don't always feel it starting. But when it arrives, when it clicks, everything changes. That moment came a few weeks after the cafe encounter. I'd been refining an idea I'd quietly worked on for months. A business model, lean, aggressive, built on experience the younger guys didn't even know they were missing. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't designed to impress, it was designed to work. I packaged it under a brand new name. No ties to my past, no ego, just value. I sent it out to a few small investors I still had loose connections with, people who hadn't called me in years but who remembered what I'd built before. I didn't expect much, but within a week my inbox lit up. One call led to another. One meeting turned into 5. People didn't care about my age when they saw the numbers, the clarity, the experience poured into every line of the plan. I wasn't trying to compete with the noise, I was giving people answers. And quietly, without anyone noticing, I launched. Small under the radar, but powerful. I built a lean team, mostly remote. I trained them myself, taught them what I knew, what no one had taught me when I was starting out. There was something poetic about it. These young minds listening, learning, respecting. I wasn't a relic to them, I was a weapon. Soon, clients started signing. Word spread not loudly but persistently, a whisper at first, then a hum. I wasn't just back in the game. I was building something new, something stronger, something mine. But I kept it quiet. I didn't post online. I didn't brag. I didn't even tell my old contacts from the company what I was doing. Because deep down, I wanted them to find out on their own, to stumble upon my name again and think, wait, he's still in the game. No, I wasn't just in the game. I was playing a whole new one, and they weren't even invited yet. The moment of truth came sooner than I expected. I'd been careful, silent, building my business out of the spotlight, but news travels fast in the world I thought I'd left behind. One afternoon, I got a message from an old rival, someone who had once been my fiercest competitor before I left the company. His tone was mocking, barely hiding his surprise. "Looks like the old man is making waves again," he wrote, "ready for a real challenge." That message was the first shot in what would become a long battle. I knew this was more than business, it was personal. They had underestimated me once. They thought I was done. But now I was back with everything to prove. We met at a neutral venue, a conference room filled with younger faces, curious eyes, and thinly veiled skepticism. I felt the weight of their judgment like a physical force, but I didn't flinch. I laid out my vision clearly. No flash, no gimmicks, just cold, hard facts backed by years of experience. I saw their eyes shift, some narrowing in doubt, others widening in interest. It was like watching a game of chess in real time. Then came the questions, sharp, relentless. They wanted to test if the man behind the plan was still the same. I answered everyone with calm and precision, not because I wanted to prove them wrong, but because I knew this was the moment I had been preparing for, the moment I took control. When the meeting ended, the room was silent. I could almost hear the thoughts racing behind their faces. This wasn't the retirement speech they'd expected. This was a declaration. I walked out feeling lighter, stronger. For the first time in months, I felt alive in the fight again. They called me too old, but here I was, standing taller than ever. And this was only the beginning. After that first meeting, everything began to shift. The underestimation that had once cloaked me in silence was starting to crack, revealing a force they hadn't expected. The competition grew fiercer. Every move I made was watched closely, dissected by those who thought they had me figured out. But while they focused on my age, I focused on my strengths. The lessons time had taught me, the patience I'd gained, and the mistakes I'd learned to avoid. I worked harder, yes, but smarter too. I leaned into collaboration, building alliances with people who saw value beyond the surface. Together, we crafted strategies that surprised even the most confident rivals. One breakthrough deal after another came through, not with loud announcements, but through steady progress. Clients started switching sides quietly, drawn by the results we delivered rather than flashy promises. Behind the scenes, I was mentoring my team, pushing them to think bigger, to challenge assumptions. Their energy was infectious, but it was tempered by the wisdom I brought, an unshakable foundation in a sea of trends and hype. But the real victory was internal. I stopped measuring myself by their opinions or expectations. The doubt that had once gnawed at me faded, replaced by quiet confidence. I wasn't just fighting to prove a point, I was building a legacy. And as the months passed, the whispers changed tone. From doubt to curiosity, from amusement to respect. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I had become the rival they never saw coming. Everything led to this moment. the culmination of months of quiet work, calculated risks, and silent battles. The biggest client in the region was up for grabs, and both my old company and my new venture were in the race. The boardroom felt colder than usual as we sat across from each other. Faces I knew well, but eyes that barely hid their surprise and tension. They'd underestimated me for too long, and now they were facing the man they once dismissed as too old. I opened my presentation with steady hands and a calm voice, laying out the plan I'd crafted meticulously. Every number was precise, every strategy tested. But beyond the data, I spoke with the confidence of someone who had lived through failure and come back stronger. My old rivals fired questions, trying to rattle me to expose any weakness. But I stood firm, answering every challenge with clarity and composure. I wasn't just defending a proposal, I was proving a point. Experience matters, wisdom matters. When it was over, the room was silent. Then the unexpected happened. The client made their decision. They chose my company. I saw the disbelief in my former colleague's eyes, the shock that the too old man had outmaneuvered them. That victory wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. It was a statement to everyone who had ever doubted me. I had faced the sneers, the laughter, the loneliness of starting over. And I had won. But more importantly, I had found myself again. Winning that big client felt like the closing of a chapter, but also the opening of something much bigger. It wasn't just about beating old rivals or proving my worth. It was about redefining who I was beyond the labels and the expectations. After the victory, I noticed a change in how people treated me. The sneers were replaced by nods of respect. The whispers of doubt turned into conversations seeking advice. But the real transformation happened inside me. I realized I wasn't competing just to silence others. I was competing to honor my own journey, the struggles, the doubts, the moments of despair. Every setback had shaped me, every too old label had fueled me. I started mentoring others who felt overlooked, forgotten, or underestimated. Men and women who were told they didn't fit anymore, who were pushed aside by a world obsessed with youth and speed. I wanted them to know that age isn't a wall, it's a foundation. Looking back, I'm grateful for every harsh word, every doubter, every lonely night of struggle. They pushed me to find strength I didn't know I had. I'm no longer just the too old man. I'm a rival, a leader, and most importantly, a man who refused to be defined by anyone else's timeline. The story isn't over, not by a long shot. But now I face the future with quiet confidence, knowing that the greatest battles are those fought within. And no matter what comes next, I'll be ready.